Yes.
Yes.
You only hear one side. You only hear anti-apartheid in this country and in Britain. You never hear the good things about it.
All right,
it
now
is
take
not.
up the running. Chairman, you take up the running to answer that.
I
Hold on.
have gone to South Africa to work myself from Rhodesia, and I'm a foreign African according to the South African situation. I went to South Africa not because life is better for Africans in South Africa. In fact, you can easily say life is better for Africans in South Africa because you have never been black before yourself, and you have never known how bad it is to be black in South Africa.
Can you hold on, Chem? Can you give us some small, everyday examples of what it's like to be black in South Africa?
To be black in South Africa is that you are in restriction daily. You have to carry a pass. You are not allowed to travel late at night in the city except for white people who are God's people. And in South Africa, you are not allowed to go even into certain restaurants because they are all white. There are always signs all over the city that non-whites, people who are not white, go through this direction. People who are not white, who are white, should go through this direction. And the directions through which white people pass, they are beautiful places, well painted, everything is fine. You find an African worker working in the mines getting £6, £2 a month, and a white worker getting over 100. And then you say life for Africans is better in South Africa.
What will you say to somebody during the week about the child who was knocked down and an ambulance? I got a garbled version of that somewhere.
Pardon?
A child knocked down and an ambulance coming. Was it you or was it Mrs. Campbell who was saying that? Mrs. Campbell, about a white child being knocked down or something.
Say this, but you know, all this thing going on about South Africa, and I would like him to paint himself black. You know, you plant trees, these are black men in South Africa, and you can't sit in a park. I mean, you know, something like that, the nature of your own country.
I'm a South African.
Kader, you're South African,
Yeah,
right?
I'm sorry, I think it's necessary to be said, this point that Mr. Bates raised about 1 million foreign natives. Quentin Hogg quite rightly said, so what? You know, the other argument that is raised, quite unhistorical, that they were not there in any case first, you know, that the others came first before them. Now, I think this question about 1 million foreign Africans, Mr. Bates, I work for the South African Embassy, he must know that there is a body called the Witwatersrand Native Recruiting Association, which recruits 100,000 Africans in Angola and Mozambique, in Rhodesia, in Malawi. Without African
Which are not
labor,
free countries.
yes, without African labor, the gold mines of South Africa would come to a standstill. The first thing that Tanzania did when it became independent was to stop the recruitment of black labor in South African mines. This is a crucial matter. South Africa is not a cornucopia for the majority of non-whites. I think my friend here only gave you one example about park benches. But the whole protest about this rugby, and it may be one-sided, as Mr. Richardson said, but I have the authority of a great South African, the Bishop of Stepney, the Right Reverend Ambrose Reeves, who said one can't be impartial about South Africa. It is the only country of its kind in the world. And this is where, very slowly and calmly and deliberately, I'd like to disagree with Quentin Hogg about relationships with communist countries and with South Africa. Our relationships, and this is why I feel insulted as a South African, I am a South African also. I'd like the rest of the Western world particularly to have relationships with the real South Africa. There are 17.5 million people in South Africa. For 90 years, as Andy Mulligan said in The Observer, we've had proper cultural relationships, sporting relationships, we've sold arms and all the weapons of destruction to one side of South Africa. Now we must start extending the hands of friendship to the great unwashed, the dispossessed, the exploited. You know your pictures of Biafra you've seen, of the children with distended stomachs. In South Africa, Kwashioka, and this is the basis, the area of relevance. In South Africa, in Port Elizabeth, 200 out of 1,000 African children die before they reach age of 1. Why? Why?
Wait a minute. Harry and C.J. Barry Richardson, you know, how do you cope with that? So are they telling lies?
First of all, I would like to say that if it wasn't for the white people, there would be no Negroes to worry about at all. It's precisely because the white people have looked after them medically and gradually brought them on. Within living memory, the African Negro was a savage. They were cannibals. Within living memory.
That's very insulting. I don't think that should be allowed to be said here. That's very insulting. We were savages. What do you mean when you say we were savages? That's very insulting. If you
Could I?
we don't like to hear that language here.
Can I reply to that?
You can answer. You may answer, Chen. Go ahead. Yeah, this is what you believe. Yeah.
I believe,
Hold up.
I believe emotion is no use in matters of this kind. You've got to apply reason and common sense.
You can have no emotions because you have not been exploited. I know what it means to be black.
Talk. You see, that is the trouble. You will not let anyone talk. Our civilization, we can say, is 5,000 years old. We began, start from the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Dark Ages, 1066 and all that. Very painfully and slowly we have arrived at the civilization which Europe has achieved today. But the African Negro, I maintain, is about 50,000 years behind our civilization.
Could I answer?
Yes.
Even on the assumption that that were true, what justification would it be for what you're doing? I mean, there seems to me that we all know about the Zulu Wars and all the rest of it, and the terrible forms of battles which took place there. Anybody who studies African history knows it. But there can be no justification for an unjust society, and there can be no justification for a closed society. Now, what seems to me wrong about apartheid, I'm prepared, and you can see how they go for me, I'm prepared to advance slowly, but I must advance. And if you have a closed society, the vice of apartheid is that it offers no prospect for the future that one can see within any measurable time. It is a closed society, not an open society.
But you are prepared to support economic...
Hold on for a minute, Harry Bates.
We have more university graduates in Southern Africa, in South Africa, than the rest of black Africa.
And working
put
in the
together.
But you're never going to admit them to citizenship, however many
We're moving very rapidly and toward the right.
Yes.
And also,
Could I say something about that?
well, do you mind if I finish?
Oh, no, not at all.
Thank you.
You're talking rubbish.
I would like to say that I hold no grief for apartheid or South Africa or anything. I am only giving you my observations. I have been in the West Indies and I have been in South Africa. I thought the West Indies was a madhouse, and I found South Africa beautifully ordered, in fact one of the best run countries in the world.
Okay, now hold on for a minute. Chen, do you hate all white men?
My wife is Irish from Kildare.